I'm going to start at the very top. And if Ashton Jeanty doesn't go to Las Vegas at 6 and he is available to the Bears at 10, take him. Take him. Put him behind that offensive line. Get him in there with Caleb Williams. You've got Moore and Odunze on the outside. Get him behind Jones, Jackson, Dahlman, Tooney, Wright. Get him behind those 5 and watch what happens. Because at that point, if the Bears were to get him, I would probably pick Ashton Jeanty to win Rookie of the Year. I mean, I think that's got the potential to be an elite offensive line. I understand if they like the depth of this class and they want to go defensive line first, I would understand it. They still need some help there. I don't understand at all, and I know I'm in the minority on this, but why I'm seeing so many mock drafts with the Bears still taking Will Campbell at 10 when Braxton Jones is just fine there. He was a top 25 tackle last year. I don't understand that at all. But again, this goes back to Jeanty being in a class by himself, okay? And I know this is the depth of this running back class, and they have 2 second-round picks. They could easily get Quinshon or somebody else in the second round. But Ashton Jeanty is special. And if you put him behind this offensive line, he can absolutely be special. You talk about taking the pressure off of Caleb Williams, and you talk about Ben Johnson getting into the run game that he wants to. I think if he's there at 10, you take him and you run with it, and you get into this deep defensive line class also. Fix that later. You want O-line depth, get it later. If Ashton Jeanty's on the board at number 10, Chicago Bears, take him, run with it, see you in the postseason.
I think this is the ideal landing spot for Ashton Jeanty, for not only him to have the most production that he possibly can because he's behind what is now a really good offensive line, in my opinion. In theory, of course, they haven't played together yet, but it's also just maximum fun, right? Caleb Williams and Ashton Jeanty, 2 of the best players in college football over the last 2 years. Then you got a great receiving core to throw it to. You got a good offensive line in front of you, and Ben Johnson is the one who gets to orchestrate and call the plays for that offense. I love it. I love this spot. I think it's absolutely perfect. My first one that I want to go to is RJ Harvey going to the Washington Commanders. They've already got not Brian Thomas, Brian Robinson. They've already got Brian Robinson there. And then they have some guys that are sort of backing them up, Jeremy McNichols, they have Austin Eckler, but imagine RJ Harvey as the little 1-2 combination that we have there in Washington. In fact, if you're running any sort of option play with a Jaden Daniels and an RJ Harvey, that is a lot of missed tackles forced waiting to happen. I think that could be really good for him. Obviously, they got to shore up the offensive line with some of the struggles and injuries that they had during last season. But I love the idea. Talk about Jackson League duos, and a duo that I really love. Brian Robinson Jr. and RJ Harvey, I think, could be a really great 1-2 complement in Washington's backfield. Now, I don't think they're going to take Harvey at the end of the first round, but later in the draft, if he's on the board and they really fix what they need to, maybe in the trenches with that first round pick, free themselves up to get a running back, depending on where RJ Harvey ends up going in this draft. So that is a combination that I love, getting to see him in Washington.
I think that's a really good call, and I think one of the things that's going to be underrated with Harvey is the scheme versatility, because they ran so many different concepts under Gus Malzahn at UCF. Basically, he was able to handle all of it as the workhorse, and Gus Malzahn's the king of all the read option, everything like that, going back to his days with Cam Newton. So I think Harvey would fit in well, and he could play pretty much any role that you want him to. And I think, again, gives you underrated receiving ability that we didn't get to see a ton of at UCF because of the quarterback situation. We did get to see it at the Senior Bowl. I thought he was one of the best pass-catching backs out there. If he can be two-dimensional like that, and I guess kind of sort of, you mentioned Austin Eckler, kind of be the heir to the throne of Austin Eckler there as kind of that passing down dual threat guy. I think Harvey would be a really good fit there.
All right, who's next for you?
Give me Caleb Johnson to the Minnesota Vikings. Now,
perfect. There's
a huge gap between the first round pick at 24 and the second round pick, I think, at 97. So this is that scenario we talk about with them maybe trading down from 24, getting out of the first round, getting more picks into the second and third round. Then you start talking about, okay, would they think about Caleb Johnson? Because I think another back behind Aaron Jones, and Aaron Jones had a fantastic season this past year, but he's also 30 years old. He just signed a 2-year contract. You want to add some youth, and you want to add a scheme fit into this, Caleb Johnson's the right guy. That you mentioned it, up and down, outside zone runner. They ran it a lot more at Iowa this year than they had in past years with a new offensive coordinator. In his career in outside zone, 85.6 rushing grade and 5.9 yards per carry. I think it's just the right place for him to be as eventually the featured early down back, but I think as the complement to Aaron Jones, he can continue to get better. I think Caleb Johnson, again, the Bears in the second round would also be an option here with Ben Johnson, but this is the team I've always looked at with Caleb and just go, Kevin O'Connell needs this type of back. They're just going to probably have to trade back into the second round from 24 to be able to not feasibly do it. Could you take him at 24? Sure, but the problem is then it's like the value of, okay, what did we pass up to take Kaleb Johnson in the first round? So if we do see Minnesota trade down into the second round, I think Kaleb Johnson's a prime target for him.
It's perfect. Going back to the conversation that we had a little bit earlier about Kaleb Johnson, I love him in an offense that will allow him to run a lot of mid-zone, outside zone type of plays, and I think Minnesota's a team that has the ability to do it. I think he's a great spell behind Aaron Jones, and I think Aaron Jones is a great back to sit back and learn from, because Aaron Jones, one of the best in the NFL at a lot of those third down responsibilities, specifically as a receiver, so he gets to sort of learn with him and really sort of hone in on that and get that work as a third down guy, and whenever Aaron Jones, the contract runs up or whatever it is, I think you're fully confident in Kaleb Johnson being that feature back for you. So if he ends up in a spot like Minnesota, I could understand him being a lot higher on people's rankings because of that landing spot there and the production that he has. I don't know if this one happens, but I really like the idea of it. Quinshon Judkins and the Cincinnati Bengals, right? They've got Chase Brown. I really like Chase Brown. He brings you that speed element, but I think they would love somebody that they could lean on a little bit more on the early down work. They have Zach Moss, but I feel like Quinshon Judkins is definitely an upgrade there, especially with Moss missing time due to injury. You have Chase Brown, you have Quinshon Judkins. That'd be fantastic. Now, the Bengals have needs in both trenches, right? So the first and the second round probably spoken for there. Does Quinshon Judkins make it to their third round pick? Probably not. So I don't know how realistic it is that this one happens, but in terms of the fit, I actually really like this one a lot, especially if they're able to upgrade the interior offensive line in some way, shape, or form. But even if not, man, when you get guys who are, getting past the line of scrimmage and making contact before the line of scrimmage or even at the line of scrimmage, a guy like Quinshon Judkins is somebody who could play with a lot of power and continue to have a healthy running game because of the yards that he's going to get after contact. So not only do I love the 1-2 combination of Chase Brown and Quinshon Judkins, I think that Judkins in this offense and where the offensive line currently is right now is actually the perfect back because he helps alleviate maybe some of the interior offensive line struggles that we have there. So not so sure how likely it is that it happens. But Dalton, I like that combination if this is something that could be possible here.
I think the theme there is just finding a back that A, can keep them on schedule, and B, when you get in those late game situations, that can just get first downs, right? Just finish the game out. We saw too many times last year where they just couldn't close games out because they couldn't run the football. Yes, the offensive line's a massive part of that. They don't have a good offensive line still, especially in the interior. But you're absolutely right. Just somebody who can keep them on schedule so Joe Burrow doesn't have to do it every single play. I think it's a good call. If it's not Judkins, I think there's some other backs. I think even a Damian Martinez would help that team. I think you're talking about just getting a back who can keep you on schedule so Joe Burrow doesn't have to also throw on every 1st and 10 to do that for you.
All right, last guy. Who you got?
I'm going to talk about Quinshon's teammate, TreVeyon Henderson from Ohio State. And I think, look, you know what's something that doesn't get said enough? The Kansas City Chiefs could really use some help at running back. And I know Isaiah Pacheco was hurt last year, and he's still obviously going to be a big part of it. They re-signed Kareem Hunt, but he really just gives you those short yardage situations. Kansas City running backs last year were 22nd in rushing grade, 30th in yards per carry, and 31st in explosive run rate. And it's that last number that I'm looking at with Henderson. And Andy Reid likes his committee backfields. When I talk about 15 touches or less, I think that's exactly what TreVeyon Henderson would get in this Chiefs offense with Pacheco, is that between the tackles back. But I think between his speed and his ability to win in the passing game too, I thought as the year went on at Ohio State, especially in that playoff run, Henderson really became a weapon as a receiver. I think this is the type of team where Andy Reid could scheme him open, that he could scheme him things in the run game, especially to the outside, that can work for him, and he can just create explosive plays that the Chiefs do not have in their offense. So I think if Henderson were available with, I believe it's 63 they're picking at late in the second round, I think this is absolutely somebody they should think about because they need some juice. They need some adrenaline in this running back room. It's too plodding right now. It's 2, 3, 4 yards at a time. I think they need Henderson as kind of the lightning complement to those other backs in there.
I think that the word that you use there is the one that matters the most, and that's compliment, right? I think that they drafted Carson Steele last year to try to get more of the same. They wanted that same attitude, having Kareem Hunt and having Isaiah Pacheco and Carson Steele. I mean, it's basically the same guy. It's the same style of runner, and clearly they have a type there, but I do think that you need a little bit more of a speed threat. And so to me, I think that Henderson would complement what the Kansas City Chiefs are rolling with right now. I'm going to go Cam Skattebo as my last guy, and I'd love to see him go to the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I'm not saying at number 6 overall, obviously, but when I think about the Raiders picking at number 6, they've got a lot of other picks here in this draft. They've got their own first rounder, second rounder, third rounder, fourth rounder, fifth rounder, but then they have 3 sixth-round picks. So I think in the second or certainly the third rounds as well, you can maybe package a couple of those, move up a little bit if you need to, but I don't think that they're going to pick Skattebo at number 37. I don't know if he's going to go in that range, but you got that third round pick there. So let's say they invest at the cornerback position with one of those picks. Let's say that maybe it's offensive line or maybe it's defensive line with one of those other selections. It's something where they're attacking their biggest team needs with their first and second round pick. But then if Skattebo is still on the board for them and you get to trade up a little bit in the third round to go get him, or maybe he even makes it to 68, because some people get mad at me when I talk about him being drafted a little bit higher. Maybe he even makes it to 68 and you get to pick him in the third round just outright. That's a fit that I like a lot. I'm not saying that he's Marshawn Lynch, but clearly Pete Carroll knows the value of a guy who just will not go down. And so if you get a player like that in the third round and you get to put that into your backfield right now, which has Raheem Mostert, which has Sincere McCormick, I think that that's a nice little combination there anyways. And I think the offensive line for the Las Vegas Raiders is good, and I think it's only going to get better because John Spytek, their general manager, is somebody who worked very closely under Jason Light in Tampa Bay, always prioritizing the offensive line. So Cam Skattebo, if he can make it to the Raiders in the third round and they get to address 2 bigger needs in the first and second round, to me, I love that landing spot, especially for a head coach like Pete Carroll. So that's one of my favorites there for him.
If I remember right, I think it was this past Monday when Max and I were here doing a live 3-round mock draft. I'm pretty sure that's the third round pick that we made is Cam Skattebo to the Raiders. We had a big run on running backs right around in that late 60s, early 70s range, and I'm pretty sure I picked that with the idea of, hey, I mean, he's not quite Marshawn Lynch, but don't you think Pete Carroll wants one of these angry, keep you on schedule backs, these physical, tone-setting backs, and Cam Skattebo fits that to a T. If he were to get to the Raiders with that third-round pick, I think that's absolutely a pick they would make if Ashton Jeanty isn't the selection at 6. But that's also the argument that I make for, the last couple mocks I've done, having Tetero and McMillan be the pick at 6 for the Raiders. They need that X receiver. They can dip into the running back class. They were last in the league in rushing grade last year, so they need a player like this. Maybe I would even consider taking 2 backs in this class if I was them. One early on and maybe one with one of those 3 6-round picks. Find another complimentary guy because they need talent in that room. But Skattebo, I think Pete Carroll would love him.